We started from zero with no written instructions.
That was one of the challenges that brought me. An opportunity to do something which you have an opportunity to do probably once in a lifetime if you're lucky.
Everybody seemed to be so excited with what was happening, and I think all those folks that were here early had a real mission.
And then I helped with the tours when they had the hospital open, and walked backwards all day one Sunday, and the next day I couldn't walk forward.
There was no, well, this is not my job, this is your job type of thing. Whatever was asked of you, you did it.
Suddenly you had new friends who had come from California and Africa, Texas, just a whole new life.
Well, George Nelson just turned the excitement on as far as I was concerned, because he was a visionary. And I think that first year especially, we were all turned on by the excitement of starting something that didn't exist before.
In 1960, Kettering Medical Center was little more than a high hope rooted in an empty field. But already the plans that would bridge the chasm between the dream and the reality were taking shape. A lot of seemingly unrelated things went into the making of that dream. Visions and vitamins, cornflakes and chlorophyll, polio and peanut butter. On the surface, they have nothing in common. And yet all are intimately involved in the foundation and growth of Kettering Medical Center. In a meadow south of Dayton, an inventor once looked at the grass and wondered what made it green. But unlike most of us who wonder and then forget, Charles Franklin Kettering turned the question into a scientific investigation about the nature of chlorophyll. He called himself a screwdriver and pliers scientist and spent most of his life tinkering. But through that tinkering, he helped develop the modern-day refrigerator and the diesel engine. He electrified the cash register and invented a self-starter for automobiles. His scientific curiosity also led Boss Kett to probe the nature of magnetism, work on an artificial heart, and build a fever machine for medical research. When he died at the age of 82, Charles F. Kettering was second only to Thomas Alva Edison in the number of patents he had acquired.
He was a unique man, his whole thought patterns. And I have to throw in here that I knew him when I was going to high school by listening to the radio. On Sunday night, he had a special program for an hour. And I don't know how I first happened to listen, but I was hooked from the first one. And I would plan every Sunday night to listen to this man who told story after stories of his own philosophy of life. So when I came here, I was aware that here was a great inventive genius who had helped to mold this area.
From the time a kid starts the kindergarten up until he graduates from college, he's examined 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, and if he flunks from once, he's out. And that's very bad. Now the inventor fails 999 times, and if he succeeds in once, he's in.
Kettering predicted the 20th century would be the century of medical research. Those predictions proved true, and decades later, his spirit of scientific inquiry still stands as a cornerstone of the medical center which bears his name. When Charles Kettering died, his son and daughter-in-law decided a hospital would be a fitting memorial. There was an acute shortage of hospital beds in the Dayton area at the time, and the whole community welcomed the idea. The Charles F. Kettering Memorial Hospital may be the only multi-million-dollar building project to be carried through on a handshake. Eugene Kettering and hospital administrator George Nelson brought the building from blueprint to completion bound by only mutual trust and respect.
There were no documents detailing his understanding with the church leaders about the project. So I said to him in one of our very first meetings, shouldn't we have our attorneys prepare a draft of the understanding that you have with the church leaders? He looked at me and said, George, what's the matter? Don't you trust me?
The vision Eugene and Virginia Kettering held for a hospital went beyond the bricks and mortar of a modern building. George Nelson remembers one of his earliest meetings with the couple.
It was a very delightful experience. We learned that the Ketterings wanted a quality hospital with no extravagance, no ostentation, and as Mr. Kettering said, no gold-plated doorknobs.
The Kettering vision for the hospital began in 1949 in the Chicago suburb of Hinsdale, Illinois, where Eugene and Virginia Kettering lived. Within a 3-week period, 53 active cases of infantile paralysis were reported in DuPage County. One of the first victims was the child of a Kettering family employee. The Hinsdale Sanitarium and Hospital handled a large number of these cases. Wilma Peckinpah was head nurse of the Hinsdale polio unit during those dark days.
And of course we lived with the fear it might be me. You know, I might become ill. You felt that you were certainly needed.
Virginia and Eugene Kettering underwrote the remodeling of a special polio unit in Hinsdale Sanitarium. But their involvement did not stop there. Both worked on the nursing unit, and Mrs. Kettering organized a group of volunteers to help hard-pressed medical workers care for the children.
These ladies also began bringing in food for the personnel, for the nursing personnel, so that we wouldn't have to take time out of our busy schedule to go to the dining room.
Polio was almost a thing of the past when Charles F. Kettering Memorial Hospital opened in 1964. But the care the Ketterings observed during that Hinsdale epidemic, loving attention that went above and beyond medical need, influenced the way the Dayton area hospital would be run. The Hinsdale Sanitarium was founded by Seventh-day Adventist pioneers David and Mary Paulson. Hinsdale Sanitarium was a spin-off of Battle Creek Sanitarium, where Dr. Paulson had trained. Both SANs, as the sanitariums were called, were operated on the principle that a meatless diet, corrective exercise, water therapy, proper rest, fresh air, sunshine, and a positive mental attitude were the best means to return an ailing body to its natural state of health. The Battle Creek idea, in turn, followed the teachings of Ellen G. White, whose visions connecting healthful living with Christian duty led to the establishment of the Western Health Reform Institute. Ellen White and her husband James lived in this modest Battle Creek home when she opened the small institute where people could, in her words, take care of their bodies that they may prevent illness. One of the physicians inspired by Mrs. White was John Harvey Kellogg. Kellogg, the son of a family friend, was guided into medical school by the Whites. Later, he headed the Western Health Reform Institute. When the Health Institute outgrew its quarters, it was replaced by Battle Creek Sanitarium. Kellogg stayed for 67 years. Under Dr. Kellogg's guidance, Battle Creek Sanitarium grew both in popularity and reputation. By the 1920s, the SAN was an internationally known health resort, frequented by a crowd of celebrities who took light treatments, ate vegetarian meals in the grand dining room, breathed deeply of the fresh air, took countless steam and water baths, and promenaded through the courtyard in a stylized march each evening. Catering to the tastes of the rich and famous caused headaches in sanitarium kitchens. To improve the bland diet, Dr. Kellogg and his younger brother, Will, developed peanut butter. They began to cook grains, feed them through rollers, and bake the flat residue. The resulting flakes are found in virtually every American kitchen today, making the Kellogg name a household word. Over the years, John Harvey Kellogg edited and published hundreds of health tracts. Many of the health principles publicized by Dr. Kellogg have become part of the modern health mission of Kettering Medical Center.
Our mission was to establish and provide healing and comfort for the sick and injured in a comfortable, attractive situation, and where possible, to guide people toward a sound philosophy of life and a system of living that would prolong life and restore and maintain health.
A class to beat the tobacco habit introduced the Dayton area to the Adventist mission of health. The 5-day plan to help smokers give up cigarettes was the first example of Kettering Memorial Hospital's commitment to community health education. Next, an exercise group was started. Classes in childbirth, nutrition, stress relief, and child care soon followed. As the list grew, Kettering Medical Center became known for its pioneer efforts in community health education. History tells of pioneers who sold their land, uprooted their families, and pursued a dream into unknown territory through incredible hardships. But such pioneering did not end with the settlement of the West. Kettering Medical Centers had its share.
Yeah, they were pioneers, and they were all, you must recognize, displaced people, except a few that came from the local community. And we were all new employees. Everyone was equal. And there was a great feeling of fellowship, and we all worked together in a great adventure.
George Nelson was the first of those adventurers. In 1960, he gave up a secure job as head of a leading West Coast hospital and moved across the country to build and run a hospital that had not yet progressed to a hole in the ground. One of Nelson's most pressing challenges was to recruit a hospital staff.
We promised the local hospitals that we would not advertise locally so that we would not disrupt their services. We tried hard to make friends with everybody in the community. We set out to recruit people from wherever we could find them.
Michael and Mildred Kostenko were recruited by George Nelson.
What he told me kind of shook me a little. He said, "We need you next week." Well, strange to say, we didn't think it was possible, but we did it all in 30 days. Drove home, put our house up for sale, packed up, and landed here 30 days from that date.
Irwin Bishop's decision was even faster.
They gave me 3 days to give them a yes or a no. 3 days, we made up our mind. They contacted me on a Friday. On a Sunday, we made up our mind. Wednesday, we were on the road.
Elmer and Goldie Leno sold a prosperous business and home in Elm Creek, Nebraska, and moved to Ohio, all within a 2-week period.
When our banker heard that we were selling our business to go to work for a hospital, he called me in his office and he gave me an hour's lecture of the mistake that I was making, because he knew what we started with 10 years before and where we were at the point when he called me in the office.
More than one spouse of a recruited worker also got caught up in the project.
We were here about a week or so, I guess, when they called and asked if I could come in and help out until they found a full-time secretary for this department. And I hesitated, and they said, well, it'd probably be just a few weeks. And the few weeks turned into 21 years.
The monumental task of staffing an entirely new institution was only one of the problems facing George Nelson.
See, the original plans did not contain provision for an emergency department or an outpatient department. Physical medicine was a small room, about 15 feet square, and it was very limited. It was very difficult to change that.
But the changes occurred and the vision for the hospital expanded daily. Before the doors opened, Kettering College of Medical Arts grew from a nurse's training school to a 2-year associate degree college. Kettering College of Medical Arts was the only college in the country totally run by a hospital. But the college was only one in a long list of Kettering Medical Center firsts. George Nelson helped design the first bedside console for patients. A unique air handling system assured that air in the hospital lobby did not have the medicinal odor associated with hospitals. Robert Willett broke the insurance barrier. Through his Verticare system, Blue Cross first agreed to pay for certain outpatient procedures, saving patients both time and money. Kettering was the first hospital in the area to use unit doses, medicines dispensed to patients in individual sealed packets. CT and magnetic resonance scanners and a host of other laboratory and surgical equipment were first introduced to the Dayton area at KMC. Charles Kettering's shadow looms large in such technical areas.
One expected a hospital in his name to be forward-looking, to be innovative, to be technologically at the top, because that's who he was. So that part of our mission is to reflect that Kettering mentality of excellence, of high-tech, of really making quality our first concern.
But high-tech is only part of the Kettering mission. The rest has to do with a vision that caused those first employees to interrupt settled lives and come here to create a new hospital.
I've often wondered how people today could catch some of the fire and inspiration and enthusiasm of those first years. And you can't capture the same thing, but what you can do is to become deeply aware of what a unique place Kettering is.
I have taken care of patients who have been in other hospitals than here, and the main thing they say is it's just different at Kettering.
I think it's a very caring hospital, not only for patients, not only for visitors, but really for employees too.
Maybe it's the caring attitude of really caring about your patients, what happens to them, what affects them. That it's not just a job, you know, where you come and do your 8 hours and go home again.
I think of the challenges that we have in our age right now with all of the changes taking place in medicine, to see this place as an exciting place to work. People came because there was something that fit their own values, their own dreams, their own hopes. That needs to be kept alive. But we ought to be among those who do a thorough job of caring, of using skills to the best of our knowledge, and of really living the kind of values of this place.